I'm very bad at interviews, just to right off from the start. I'm also, my full name's Emmanuelle Rochefort. I own Emroc Digital. That's like kind of where Emroc comes from. It's like my name, Emmanuelle, and then the last part of my last name. I'm 23. I've been doing this for a year and a half now. I started this in October 2020, so like the beginning of the pandemic. Just kind of like for fun as like a side thing, and then whatever kind of exploded, I guess, during the pandemic, and I figured I was like pretty good at it, and now here we are. Like I'm doing this. So basically, I guess like my little like bio, my little like backstory. I went to university. I was in psychology at McGill, and then I just hated university. I felt like it wasn't really my path, so I dropped out and decided to become a waitress and moved out of my parents' house. And then after doing that, I stopped doing that because of the pandemic, and then I got into like websites and stuff like that, and now here we are. I learned how to code when I was like 14 on Tumblr because I was obsessed with like making little blogs and like tweeting stuff, and I would make like stupid graphics on like Word and stuff like that, like n'importe quoi. And I learned like HTML, CSS, whatever, and then I would make my own like code, like my own themes, and people would like message me being like, oh, can I have your theme? And if I knew what I knew now, I would have been selling them back then, and I would like make little rainbow cursors anyway. So that's like kind of like how I started. And then like I took a few classes in high school, but it was never like the tech career, like that tech aspect was never something that was like openly pushed towards me as like a career option, I guess, when I was like trying to figure out what I wanted to do in a sense. Like it was always business, lawyer, finance, or science, I guess, in a sense. And it was never like, yeah, women can be in tech, or like, I don't know, it was just not like pushed in that sense. And I just didn't really know that this was like a possible career. So I just decided to create it myself, I guess. But yeah, that's basically my little rundown of myself, I guess. Well, I do a lot of things, but originally it started with websites. So I specialize, I guess, in user interface, user experience, and like user optimized like web applications. I started dabbling is the word, anyways, whatever, in like mobile app design too, but not like the development of that, but just like the design, like the interface. I specifically do no-code websites, which is like a very big tool that broke out at the beginning of the pandemic and not a lot of people caught on to, but I learned how to do it, like how to use the no-code tools. And now here we are. So I don't just do websites, I also do like digital identities. It's like the bigger other part of it. So like all like the branding, but I call it digital identities because that kind of goes with like my website stuff better. But all the branding, logos, color palettes, strategies for social, web, digital development. I do like consulting, but I don't call it consulting. But it's more just like, you know, we like brainstorm, I give people ideas of like what they should be doing to like further increase their digital presence. And yeah, and I basically only exclusively work with women. I have like one male client, but that's like a huge part of like my business, I guess, in a sense, is like that women empowerment and like the women in tech aspect. One of our like taglines is women in tech for women in business, which I've found to be like a very niche part of the market that I've grown into, I guess, in a sense, because like I feel like what I do doesn't really exist, I guess, in a sense, like very social media based. It's very like aimed towards like my audience of like my friends, I guess. Like I create stuff that I know myself and the people around me would consume, and that's kind of how I like run my whole business. And it's also just like, I guess my business is very based also in like the newer culture of like startups. We're like a tech startup. I call us a creative tech startup because, you know, we don't just do tech and like people associate that with like being boring and like, you know, code and numbers and n'importe quoi, but it's way more than that. It's super creative and super fun, and it really is about like the design and like so much more than that, like the overall cohesive digital presence and like your identity on the internet, if that makes sense. So that's basically like a mini summary of what I do. I have 18 clients. When I first started, I wasn't even charging for websites. I was literally, one of my first websites, I charged like $800, which is nothing, which is crazy. Some I did for free. But yeah, that's kind of like the overall rundown of what I do, I guess. For now, obviously it's expanding a lot in that sense, but coming soon. So originally I started this literally in my bed. I started, actually how this whole thing started was I started on TikTok. I made the in my head, I was like, oh, I never thought of the word Emroc, but then I was on TikTok, whatever, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna start like, you know, just like filming my journey a bit. So I started making some like TikToks, whatever, and then some of my TikToks started going viral. Like one of them got like 100,000 views. some other got like 40, 50,000. And then I started getting some like direct, and this is all literally in my bed from my apartment when I first moved out, like beginning of the pandemic. And I started getting DMs of like, oh, can you help me set up my Shopify? Can you help me do this? Blah, blah. So I would do that for like $200-$300, whatever. And then it would convert to Instagram basically. And then I started getting like clients like in my entourage or like my circle of life. So the more that grew, then I started expanding a bit. I had more clients, so I hired someone, my partner now. We basically do this together. She takes care of like the more design aspect of the business, and I do more like the web and like the greater strata. I'm like the CEO. But then in September, I was doing everything from home. We've always been like remote first, I guess, in a sense, obviously, because that's kind of like how I see the world continuing. Like it's just so much easier that way. But I got an office space at my uncle's cloud server company. So that's like my actual office, but I have an office at my house also. So that was probably around when I had like 10 clients that I got the office space, because I just realized like I needed a place to like work and like actually create. And it wasn't just like my little like side hustle or like my little job anymore. It was like literally like my company. So then one thing led to another as things started to expand, I guess. Word got out, and after I posted a few websites, like people were like intrigued, I guess, by what I was doing, because it doesn't really exist in Montreal, especially like coming from women. And I feel like as women, we have a bit of like a different perspective on like the digital aspect, since we are the ones mainly like shopping and like consuming online, right? It's like usually a lot of women. So I feel like that tied into like the quality of the work I produce, like helped me expand a lot, and it kind of blew up on Instagram and on TikTok. And here we are. I have like 3 employees now, which is pretty exciting. Looking to expand further, hopefully by the summer, like hire someone to do websites, like a developer, because I definitely need help with that. But for now, we're just a team of 3 women basically, who work with other women. So that's kind of like how we expanded, I guess. Honestly, what I love is like, okay, so there's a lot of things that I love and there's a lot of things I don't love. And I'm gonna be honest, one of my least favorite parts is like the administration part, accounting, legal, all this stuff, which is like one of the most important parts of I was sued twice in full whatever from like clients, whatever. I didn't actually get sued, obviously, whatever. But like, it's just like, you know, my legal contracts weren't like tight enough, stuff like that. And I also just didn't know what I was doing at first, right? Like I had this business that all of a sudden I thought was like, you know, like fun, and all of a sudden I have like 3 people who depend on me, you know, so like that part's a bit stressful. But like the parts that I do love, like obviously make up for that. So like I love like the actual like creative aspect, and the fact that it's not just like, I'm not just sitting on my computer and like looking at code and doing nothing all day, you know, it's like I'm creating stuff and I'm actually thinking and like trying to make stuff that's like unique and will stand out online or wherever it's being distributed. I also love working with my clients. That's probably like my favorite part. I find it like I don't just sign any client, not in like an exclusive, like, you know, cocky way I want to say, but in a way it's like I want to make sure that the client and I are going to get along, because I do invest so much of my time and energy into their businesses to like help them succeed, that like I want to make sure the energy is matched in a sense, and I want to make sure we're like on the same page, and that like they're going to go well with the rest of like what I call the M web. So my M web is like kind of one of my divisions of Emroc, I guess. But that's probably one of my favorite parts, is like getting to like see the reactions. I also really like the professional gratification part of it. I feel we kind of touched on that earlier, but you know, like just knowing like when you do post something, or you like produce a website and like the collection sells out, or like 1,000 people went on it that day, and like the client's so happy, that like fuels my fire. And that's like probably like my favorite part. And also just like the potential for like expansion and possibility in this space, like because like women are not really like highly represented. It's obviously a male dominated industry. Back to what I was saying about TikTok, like if you go in my TikTok comments, like, or I get so much shit. Sorry, am I allowed to swear? Sorry. I get like hated on so much by men being like, "You no chance you actually made that. It's a template." And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, it's very toxic. But like that's just like the tech industry in general, you know, it's like just male dominated, with like people who just, you know, like they just can't believe a woman can be in the space doing something better than they're doing it. Not to be like cocky, but it's true, you know. But yeah, I think that's also one of like the most motivating parts, is like knowing that like I'm doing something that a lot of other women aren't doing, not in like that like competitive sense, but in the sense of like I feel like I'm kind of like setting a path for a lot of people, that tech is fun and it's like totally acceptable and like open to women in a sense, and that's not as boring as like people make it seem. And it's like not being like, you know, people have this conception that a developer is like this guy who sits behind his computer and codes till 3 a.m, and like that's so not it. Like I go to photo shoots, I do all this stuff, I plan social media feeds, I make mood boards, like so much goes into it, and it's really it's really fun, honestly. Like I would not want to do anything else than what I'm doing. So I think it's important to have women in tech specifically because like the opportunities that are coming into like the world at the moment, like given like we're coming into the post-pandemic world and we're living in a totally different reality than we lived in before. And like I feel like now the consumer is empowered and a lot of the consumers are women. Like I was just saying, like we're usually the ones making the decisions online in a sense. And so many of my clients said they've worked with male developers in the past and they get charged X amount of money for a website and they'd see it 3 months later with no revisions and be like, this is the website. Doesn't reflect them, doesn't reflect their vision, doesn't like the word, like their text copy, all this stuff doesn't match. The assets aren't, it's nothing, you know? It's like, it's not them. It's like a standard Shopify template. And I feel like I kind of like bridge the gap. It's like I give my clients like the feeling that like they're in control of exactly what they want their online presence to be, which is like the most important thing in the world we're living in post-pandemic because everything's going online. Like the metaverse, Web3, crypto, NFTs, all this stuff blowing up. So I swear a lot. All this stuff just like blowing up right now and it's just the beginning. Like I feel like it's important to be giving like women a voice or a space where it's like it's so easily accessible and it's not as scary and not as complicated and difficult to get into as it seems. Like I literally create a username on TikTok and here we are. Like it's that easy. Seriously, like I taught myself basically everything I know. And I feel like that's kind of the purpose, or I guess like a big part of like what fuels my fire with Emroc is the fact that I like get to help women and like, you know, showcase a space that's really like not made for them, but should be. And it should be accessible to everyone. Yeah. If you are passionate about doing this and you have like the skills and the drive, you have to be very like motivated in a sense. But no, you don't have to start your own business. You don't have to do things like, you know, Emroc's always hiring. But I think it's just about like owning like your power and like knowing your worth also, and like not being like intimidated. Like social media in general and all this is like very scary to a lot of people, and it like, you know, it has bad connotations to mental health and stuff like that. Absolutely it does, but if you use it to your advantage, like you can teach yourself things and like actually do something for yourself. And I was saying this before also, like one of the things that also like motivates me or that I would like conseil to others is like, if you're gonna do this, like you have to like 120% dedicate to it, because if like you don't wake up and do it, no one else will. Like I know when I wake up in the morning, yeah, I'm my own boss and I can do whatever I want technically, but I wake up at 8 a.m. and 18 people depend on me every day. So that like motivates me a lot. And I think like it's a pressure, but it's like the type of pressure that makes you want to keep going, you know? So I think knowing how to like handle like the stressful times versus like the stress that's supposed to like ignite your fire is one of like my biggest learning lessons in terms of like this like career choice or like, you know, this type of like sphere of work.